Special thanks to my patrons for supporting my channel. I'll be honest, I've been dreading Zootopia 2 this entire year. I say that as someone who really likes the first Zootopia. Actually, that might be underselling it. Zootopia basically rewired my brain when it came out. Through the fandom, I not only met my first boyfriend, and by that I mean I first realized I was gay, but I was so enamored with the film that I wanted to learn how to even articulate why I liked it so much. It was because of Zootopia that I have this channel now, and for years, I did wish for a sequel. And then, Walt Disney Animation got kind of bad. Strange World, Wish, and most ominously Moana 2 made me increasingly fearful that a sequel to Zootopia would end up being very, very bad. And so when the day came and I walked into the theater, I was bracing myself for the worst. And it was actually watchable. Yet at the same time, a lot of what I feared did come to pass. So to quickly summarize, Zootopia 2 follows Nick and Judy as they begin to unravel a new mystery in Zootopia dating back 100 years. This puts them at odds with the Linksley family, descended from the inventor of the Climate Wall, and on the side of Gary DeSnake, who tries to steal the historic Linksley Journal for unknown reasons. So let me begin with the positive things in this movie. One of the aspects of the first Zootopia I loved the most was the design of the world. There was a lot of thought put into how different species of different sizes would coexist in the setting. Zootopia 2 matches that level of detail and enthusiasm. We get to see more of the world, more locations within the city, and even places we have seen before in more detail. Zootopia 2 is also pretty funny. To be sure, there are enough animal puns in here that the movie even begins to mock its own reliance on them. However, there are also plenty of other gags to be found. I found myself laughing several times, and even when the puns made me roll my eyes, it was a playful eye roll. I also like what they do with Nick and Judy. In the first movie, while Nick Wilde was for sure a central character, it was ultimately Judy's story. Here they now share the spotlight, trying to work out being police partners. And I really like there is real friction between them. While they do work off each other well, there are also points where the character traits naturally spark conflicts between them. They're both given turns to be wrong and both taught lessons that they need to learn. It makes their dynamic a lot stronger than if they just gotten along smoothly. Granted, at the end of the movie, they decide to bear their feelings in a rather stilted way. I get that they had been literally going to therapy, but it's still a little much. Overall though, I must emphasize that this is a very enjoyable movie. It's very nicely animated, very nicely presented. It is a movie that you can easily have fun in. Bear that in mind as my tone starts to get more critical. Now, I know this is an increasingly unpopular stance nowadays, but I still argue that Zootopia's themes of prejudice were well realized. And note that I didn't qualify that with well realized for a kids movie. The common read of this movie's metaphor is that prey represents a white majority, while predators represent a non-white minority, and that this metaphor is bad because predators are actually dangerous to prey in the real world. But that's really not supported by the film. First of all, Zootopia makes it clear that predators are not actually dangerous to prey. It is only a drug that causes them to attack. It's intentional misdirection from Bellwether and the resulting media frenzy that spins up that narrative. But also, there is no direct allegory to be had with prey and predator species. Judy as a rabbit faces her own struggles with social prejudice. Predators, if anything, are overrepresented in the police department. And that's what I like about the movie. You cannot overlay it on any real-world dynamic. Instead, we see different situations in the movie that individually parallel real-world issues. Judy's hiring at the ZPD provides the appearance of diversity, but it doesn't actually change the attitude of her co-workers towards her. Bellwether's conspiracy shows how the powerful can weaponize fear of the other. And most important of all, Judy Hopps has to confront her own prejudice against predators. She is a good person with good intentions, but even she falls into this line of thinking without realizing it at first. I talked more about the first movie a year ago. I'll link that video here. I recognize Zootopia's messaging is not flawless, but it does deserve more credit than it gets. I say all of this to justify my expectations for Zootopia 2. It's not that I'm upset that a kids movie doesn't have strong themes. I'm upset that Zootopia 2 failed to continue the themes of the first movie. To get into that though, I have to get into spoilers, so there's your warning. See, 100 years ago, a snake had bitten a turtle maid, and because of this one incident, all reptiles were driven from the city. In fact, the mere sight of a snake is enough to spark open terror in mammals. There's a snake! Yeah, okay, sure. That's why I realized this is going to be more exaggerated and cartoonish compared to the first movie. I do have to say as well, this movie feels a lot slighter than the first. Zootopia and Zootopia 2 are exactly the same length, down to the minute, but it feels like less happens in Zootopia 2. I wouldn't even say this movie is really a mystery. The plot flies past so quickly that there's little time for there to be any intrigue. And by the last third or so, it becomes, get to the place to get the thing that we need to win. That means, while I like the dynamic between Nick and Judy, we don't get to see enough of the new cast for them to leave their mark. Even Gary, who's all over the advertising, gets a surprisingly small amount of screen time. And Paubert, who is our now obligatory twist villain, I don't know, I just don't feel he worked. This is coming from maybe the only person on the internet who likes the Bellwether twist. She was a fully defined character with a clear motivation and an extended presence in the movie. Bellwether also thematically fits the idea of not judging someone by their species. Paubert pretends he wants to help Gary to stop his evil family, but then turns out he just wants to be more accepted by them. Yeah, that's a motivation, yet it doesn't feel nearly as strong. Maybe if we had a little more time to develop him, I'd like it more. That's the thing, it's not that I dislike any of these newcomers, we just don't get to spend that much time with them. Anyways, we find out that the snakebite had actually been faked. See, Sir Linksley, or whatever his name was an investor in Gary's great-grandmother's climate wall. She had been the one that actually invented it. However, he stole her invention for himself and then framed her for the snakebite. Again, this is what sparked reptiles being driven from the city, and the Linksleys then proceeded to bury the neighborhood under snow. Now the Linksleys are planning to do the same thing to the aquatic mammals neighborhood. Now, I would like to tell you that this movie tackles gentrification as well as the first movie tackles its issues, but I really can't. I can pin that shortcoming on a single plot beat. By the end of the movie, Gary finds the original patent that proves his great-grandmother was the inventor of the climate wall. Because of this, all anti-reptile discrimination immediately evaporates and they return. The Linksley family are imprisoned and everything is fixed. To repeat myself, is this a fine way to end a kid's movie about this topic? Yeah, sure. But the first Zootopia went beyond that. Bellwether harnessed prejudice, but she didn't create it. By extension, foiling her didn't destroy prejudice in Zootopia. It is an intractable issue that must be grappled with. It is something that even otherwise good people can be ignorant about and susceptible to. Just the way it is in our world. In Zootopia 2, anti-reptile prejudice is so bad that they cannot even coexist in the same physical space as mammals. There's a snake! And yet, this is portrayed as the result of a single discrete act, and that act being exposed is enough to dispel all these sentiments. If we just stop the bad people who cause prejudice, then it will not exist anymore. You know, I really wish that was how things worked. I'm struggling right now to really summarize my thoughts about Zootopia 2. It wouldn't be right to say I'm disappointed in it, because again, it is watchable. It feels like a movie. After watching Moana 2 last year, I didn't think we'd get even that. I had fun with Zootopia 2. At the same time though, it could have been more, because the first movie was more. The first movie accomplished more. The first movie had a lot of interesting stuff to say, and this one just doesn't. It's been thematically defanged, and on that front, it does disappoint me. At the same time though, at least we got to see these characters I like return to the big screen in a meaningful way. For that much, perhaps, I should be grateful. Anyways, yeah, they're already teasing a sequel with birds. Time to jump on the franchise train! Toot toot!